Okay, 144, Parsha Vayeitzei. Okay, Vayeitzei Yakov mi Beersheva v'yelech Harana. So Yakov leaves Beersheva and he goes to Haran, and the Ha'emek Dover points out that, remember, Yakov has a double purpose over here. He's leaving Beersheva in order to get away from Esav, and he's going to Haran in order to find a wife. Right? out of the frying pan into the fire. He's what do you call it? He's running away from Esav, and he's trying to go and find himself. Go to Haran, which is what Yitzchak told him to go find a wife. Now, the first thing is that when he leaves home, so Rivka said to go to Haran. She said, go for a short time. And the Medrash says Yaakov took a detour. Where'd he go?
Yeshiva.
Went to Yeshiva. How do you like that? He went to Yeshiva for 14 years. He goes off to Yeshiva. He's on the 14-year program. Like they have the summer program at Ohr Somayach, they have the 6-week program. He was on the 14-year program. So Yaakov goes off for 14 years to the Beis Medrash of Shem Ve'aver to go learn Torah. So the question, that first of all, what's interesting is, if you look back this is fascinating. If you look back at Pasuk Chav Beis, look back in Toldos, when Yitzchak gives Yaakov the bracha. So on page 136, page 136, 6 lines from the bottom, it says, Vayigash Yaakov el Yitzchak avi vayimushehu. Yitzchak touches him, he feels Yaakov's arms. Vayomer hakol kol Yaakov, the voice is the voice of Yaakov. Vayadayim yedei Esav, and the hands are the hands of Esav. So the Gemara says on this, that when the voice is the voice of Yaakov, that means when we're learning Torah, so then Esav's hands will be neutralized. That's our defense and our fortification against the Esavs of the world is learning Torah. The problem is that the Pasuk says the words are Hakol Kol Yaakov, the voice is the voice of Yaakov, V'hayadayim yedei Esav, and the hands are the hands of Esav. So it sounds like even when we're learning Torah, the hands are the hands of Esav. Yet Chazal say, when we're learning Torah, then the hands are neutralized. If we're not learning Torah, that's when Esav's hands are stronger. But how do you read it into the Pasuk over here? So it's very interesting, because the Vilna Gaon says, you'll notice that the first word Hakol is missing a Vav. If you look in the Pasuk, it says Hakol Kol Yaakov, the first Hakol is missing a Vav, which could also be read as kal, which is light. So if it's the Vilna Gaon says the way you read the pasuk is hakal kol Yaakov, when the voice of Yaakov lightens, when it weakens, then v'ayadayim yedei Esav, then the hands of Esav. That's what Chazal. If the voice of Yaakov is strong, so then Esav's hands aren't going to do anything to him. That's one way to interpret it. Then one of the other Mefarshim says Hakol, the Vav, remember I told you many times, the Vav, we instinctively think Vav means and, but Vav could also mean or. So one of the Mefarshim says it's Hakol Kol Yaakov, or, meaning if you're not learning Torah, Hayadayim Yedei Esav. Okay, but either way, the hands of Esav, the hands of violence and the hands of murder, what protects us is the voice of Yaakov. Now, how long does the first thing Yaakov does, he goes off to learn Torah. Why is he going to learn Torah? Well, he's being chased by Esav. Well, if you're going to be chased by Esav, what's the first thing you need to do? Get yourself protected. Right? Get yourself protected from Esav. What's interesting is he's 14 years in Yeshiva. Well, Meir, 14 is the same numerical value as what? Yad. Well, Hayadayim Yedei Esav. He wants to protect himself from the Yad of Esav, so it's 14 years in Yeshiva. So he goes off to learn Torah to protect himself from Esav. Okay, good. But that begs a question, because his mother sent him off to Haran. She said, go run away. She said, get away in order that Esav doesn't kill you. Yitzchak, his father, said, go to Haran to give a wife. Now, what gives him the right to take a detour to go off to Yeshiva for 14 years? What gives him the right to do it? His parents said to him, go say. And not only that, we're going to see later on that when Yaakov is away for 22 years, and since he's away for 22 years, he's going to get punished. And what's his punishment going to be? It's going to be away from him for 22 years either. Yet Chazal make a cheshbon over here that Yakov was away not for 22 years, away for 36 years. Yet the 14 years in Yeshiva don't count. They don't count against them. How do you like that? 14 years in Yeshiva, that doesn't count against you. That you had a right to do. Why does he have that right? So, we learned there are all sorts of halachas about, if your parents tell you not to go to Yeshiva. So by the letter of the law, be careful how we say this, by the letter of the law, the halacha in Shulchan Aruch, that's one of the areas you do not have to obey your parents. If a guy wants to learn Torah, parents say, no, we don't want you to go to Yeshiva. You don't, in the laws in Shulchan Aruch, in the laws of honoring parents, you're not obligated to obey your parents. Obviously, you want to avoid any sort of conflict and any sort of aggravation for your parents, but if push comes to shove, a person is allowed to pull, his parents can't pull rank on him in that area. A person is allowed to make his own decision there, but it has to be done very carefully with a mentor and with guidance, because sometimes in life, the best is to listen to your parents because it'll have long-term effects and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to go into that. Here, Yaakov goes off to Yeshiva. Now, why is it that he's allowed to go off to Yeshiva and it doesn't count against him? So the answer is, I heard from the Yeshiva of Daniel Airfield, he said like this. Imagine your parents send you off to Africa, right? Your parents say, we want you to go on a trip to Africa. And they buy you a ticket to Africa, or they say, go marry your niece, your cousin in Africa. There's a shidduch waiting for you. And your parents send you off. Now, it's understood that if you go to Africa, without your parents saying anything, what are you going to do when you go to Africa? I remember my parents went on a tour. They went on a tour to Africa. What is the first thing you do when you go to a tour to Africa before you go on a tour to Africa? What's that?
Safari?
No, that's what you do, yes. Vaccines. Like a whole bunch of them. I just remember my parents, they got like a, what's it called where you stick the pins in, like a pin cushion, right? They got for malaria and for this and for diseases that we haven't even heard of, and have been gone since the time of the bubonic plague. You're going off to Africa, you get yourself shot up like a heroin addict. Boom, 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 boom. They got it. So and it's understood that if your parents say to you, go to Africa, you don't have to say to them, oh, should I get a vaccine? It's understood you're going to get the, that goes with going to Africa, that goes. If parents are sending Yakov off to go to Haran and they're going to go live with a Lavan, it's understood that he needs a vaccination because of what he's going to be exposed to in Chutz La'aretz. He was with his parents, he's been raised by his parents, he's been in Yeshiva his whole life. Now you're going off to live in out in what they call the real world, right? You got to get a vaccination for that. You got to be prepared. What's the fortification for that? You got to go learn Torah. You got to fill yourself up with some Torah now. So it's understood that Yaakov Avinu, it goes without saying that obviously you're going to have to make a detour in Yeshiva. That's clear. Number one. Number two, there are commentaries that say, you know why he went to Yeshiva? Because it's the last place Esav is going to go looking for him. Right? Esav's not going to show up in a Yeshiva. Right? Yeah. I mean, if he was smart, he should look for Yaakov because he knows his brother. But Esav has nothing to do with Yeshivas. He's not going back to Yeshiva. Yeah, what were we going to ask? What's your name? Chaim, yeah, go ahead.
What happened to the yeshiva before the 14 years? Like, he's been preparing his whole life learning yeshiva.
Good question. It's a good question. He has been preparing his whole life, but now you need a dose of intensity. And Chazal say that for 14 years he didn't lie down in a bed. He didn't sleep for 14 years in a bed in yeshiva. 14 years he took a stender nap. You ever take a stender nap? You have a guy in the basement who goes to sleep on a stender. You ever do that? I know guys who could do it. My brother was able to go. He went about an hour and a half on a stender. Could put himself down for an hour and a half. My world record on a stender, I think, is 20 minutes.
And it gets numb, your arm gets on.
Yeah, I mean, your arm gets numb and I can't breathe, and then you pick up your arm, you got a big red splotch over here, you're just like yeah, I was never comfortable with it. And eventually what I did was I would use my scarf. I'd fold up my scarf and just put my head on my scarf as a pillow so my arm doesn't get numb. And my brother said when he was in yeshiva, he could, if he was tired, just put his head down and he was gone, down for the count. So I had a guy once in the shiur, in my Gemara shiur, I come walking in, and there's a guy sleeping. He was in the previous shiur, and he had put his head down on the table, and the guy's sleeping, and we walked into shiur, so the guys looked at me like, what should we do? Should we wake him up? I said, well, don't wake him up. We have to give shiur. I'm not going to wake the guy up. So I started giving the shiur. Now that means his whole shiur has already gotten up and walked out. This guy, his whole shiur, 12 guys have walked out. He's sleeping, and a new group of his come in. And he's still sleeping. And the guy said to me, what should we do? I said, no, we'll have shear. You're not going to wake the guy up. Poor guy's sleeping. Okay, so we start shear. After about 10 minutes, the guy raises his hand. He raises his hand, he looks around like. Now he's looking at completely new faces now. He's looking at it, and then he just goes. He just went right back to sleep. I mean, the guy was one step away from comatose. I'm telling you, he was I don't know, and he was gone. And he just slept for another 20 minutes, and eventually he just got up and walked out. And so Yakov doesn't sleep for 14 years. He doesn't sleep. Okay, we're going to go back to that now. Vayivka b'mokom vayolan shem kivua hashemesh vayikach me'avnei hamokom vayosem mera'ashosa vayishka v'vayakom. Yaakov goes. And he takes the stones and he puts the stones under his head. And he vayishkav b'makom. He lies down in that place. That means that for 14 years, now let's put this in a proper perspective. For 14 years, he didn't lie down. He's on the run from Esav, his brother, and all of a sudden now he lies down. You're on the run, so he lies down. So I just want to point something out over here, gentlemen. Sleep, in general, is often related. There is a certain amount of physical sleep that a person needs, but there's also sleep is often related to how motivated a person is. I don't know, have you ever played an all-night card game? You ever played cards all night? I did, a couple of times. And I don't think I even yawned. Every hand is a new adventure. It's a new excitement, right? If you're winning, it's a new adventure. If you're losing, it's a new adventure, but it's a new adventure. When you're stimulated, when you're highly motivated, you don't yawn. That's why nobody yawns in a lunchroom. Nobody ever yawns when they're serving. Nobody yawns at a restaurant, right? Nobody goes to a restaurant where they're serving steak and yawns. And maybe the waiters, not the guys eating. Nobody yawns in an amusement park. When do you yawn? When you sit down to learn Gemara. That's when you yawn, right? Nobody yawns while they're watching the Super Bowl. Okay? You yawn. Yawning, sleep is often. People who are depressed sleep a lot. Why are they sleeping when they're depressed? Why are they sleeping? Because there's no motivation. They don't have motivation. They're not motivated. They're not excited. When you're excited about something, you can't sleep. Sometimes something you're so excited about, even if you're physically tired, you can't get to sleep because you're so excited. There was a president of the United States who used to sleep 4 hours a night. So they asked him, why does he sleep for? He said, because when I'm sleeping, I'm not the president. And apparently it's good to be the president. Because then you tell people what to do, and you get to blow things up. You get. There's a lot of fun being president. It's very It's very high motivation to be. You know, Rosalind Carter just died. Jimmy Carter's wife, Rosalind Carter, died. She said that after Jimmy Carter was president for one term, she said that after leaving the White House, it was hard for her. She said she liked the excitement, the glitz and the excitement of it. It was hard for her to make the adjustment back to afterwards. She said she really liked being in Washington, and she liked that excitement. You're pumped up. You're at it. When you're pumped up, you sleep. Now, that's why I told you many times. That's why children don't like going to sleep. Ask any adult. If I would offer anybody in this room, you have a free coupon. For the next 24 hours, you could go to sleep. It will not come off your life expectancy. You'd grab it. Every adult that you meet, hi, how you doing? I'm so tired, right? Right? Most people, hi, how are you? I'm so tired. Well, what are you tired about? What are we tired about? It's at 10 o'clock in the morning. What are you tired about? Adults, tiredness comes often from a lack of motivation. Kids never want to go to sleep. Why is that? Because everything's new. Everything is a new adventure. For adults, it's been there, done that. Kids are always excited about, they're eager to see what's going on. Put a 3-year-old to sleep at night, they never want to go to sleep. They never want to go to sleep because they feel they're missing out on what they call now FOMO. And kids have FOMO, right? What do you call it? They really think they're missing out. Adults, just give me a chance, go to sleep. You have guests in the house, the kid wants to come out and see the guests. Who's there? He's screaming in his crib. He wants to come out. I'll trade places with the kid anytime. You sit with the guests. I want to go to sleep. They're boring. I've done this before. Yaakov Avinu, 14. Now listen to this. Imagine you're on the run for your life from Esav. How tired do you think you'd be? How much do you think you'd be able to lie down and go to sleep? Yaakov is on the run and he lies down to go to sleep. When couldn't he lie down? When didn't he need to lie down? In Yeshiva. that tells you that Yaakov's excitement and motivation when he was learning Torah surpassed the excitement and motivation that he was feeling when he was, the energy that was pumping when he was running away from Esau for his life. Could you imagine? That means, and that's what it's about. If a person's excited, I've experienced this myself. I'm learning at night, and I'm getting tired. I think I'm going to go to sleep. It's 10:30 at night, and I'm going to sleep. And as I start closing things up, I notice a magazine in the house. There's one of the Jewish magazines, or there's some magazine. Jose, sit down with the magazine, start reading. Next thing you know, I'm up for 2 hours reading. What happened? I thought you couldn't. I thought you were too tired to learn. Sure, the motivation is different. I've lost my motivation here. All of a sudden, ooh, this looks interesting. Some Jewish magazine with all sorts of stories about restaurants and what you could do and what you could eat, and where you could go. It's pretty interesting. So you're drawn by it. If you're interested, you're less tired. That's a rule. Yaakov's motivation is such that the motivation of learning Torah, the Torah was so exciting for him, that's more excitement generated than running away from Esau, who's trying to kill him. A remarkable thing. And here he lies down for the first time in 14 years. He lies down to go to sleep. What does he use as a pillow? He takes a rock. Now take a look at Rashi here.
So did he forget how a pillow works then?
Did he forget how a pillow works? Yeah, when you've been in yeshiva, a rock is softer than your pillow. The what do you call it? So take a look at Rashi. Rashi says there's a famous medrash that the rocks were fighting over. The rocks were fighting over which one the tzaddik is going to put his head on, right? And so they all joined together. But take a look at, there's a different Rashi I want you to see here. Right column, 3 lines from the bottom. Vayeitzei mirash yosav. He put them around his head. Says Rashi, Asan kemin marzev saviv l'rosho. He made them like a wall around his head. Sheyarei mipnei chayos ra'os. He was afraid of the wild animals. So Yaakov lies down. He's in the wilderness. He's running off out towards Lebanon, and he's running out towards Lebanon. He's out in the wilderness, and he's got to lie down at night. There are all sorts of wild animals, wild creatures around. So what does he do? He takes his stones and he puts the stones around his head to protect his head from the wild animals. That's what Rashi's quoting the Medrash. Nothing bother you about that? What's that? Not too much protection. They don't even have to knock the stones. Animals, bears, cougars, tigers, I don't think they're picky. It's not like when you sit down at the table, do you want the dark meat or you want the white meat? I think that they're fine with legs. They're good. It's not like, oh, I want the head. No. They'll take, so his head's got stones around them. I think a puma might nibble on his thigh. Right? I don't think that would stop him. I don't think a jaguar has any problem chomping on some good shin meat. Okay, it's a little tough, though he eats around the bone. But I think they'll be okay over there. What kind of protection is that? What kind of protection? You put stones around your head. What kind of protection is that? I told you I was once I went with snakes, could crawl over stones. What kind of thing? You're out in the wilderness. I was on Ohr Somayach when they took us once on a trip to En Gedi. It was one of my favorite, the trip to En Gedi. I've stopped traveling with Ohr Somayach on the Ohr Somayach Tiyulim. Every time I've gone, my life has been jeopardized. So we go off to En Gedi. And what do you call it? And all of a sudden I see a sign as we start walking on the path. There's a sign that says, "Beware of bobcats." So my first reaction was, now what am I supposed to do with this information? Right? And okay, I'm aware. Now what, if I see a bobcat? Now if I see it, but what am I supposed to say? Don't mess, bro, I'm aware of you. What am I supposed to do with it? Why are you telling me this? Is this to prepare me to say Kriya Shema because I might not make it through? Why are you telling me this? So if I had a Kalashnikov with me, okay, that'd be one thing, but I didn't. I was wearing, so that was the last time I've been there. Then I was on a trip. You love this. We were on a trip up north, and I'm scared of heights. Right? So I kept asking, we had an Israeli tour guide, was G.I. Joe Israeli, and I kept asking, every time we went on a hike, I said, are there going to be cliffs? Are there going to be cliffs? If there are cliffs, I'm not interested. So he was getting it, said, no, Rabbi Kaplan, there are no cliffs over here. What he calls a cliff, what I call a cliff are two different things, by the way. To me, this table is a cliff. He didn't. So we're up on we're on the Golan Heights. We're on the Syrian border. We're on the Golan Heights. And it was a whole group of us who were on the way to go to a hike. So I said to him, there are going to be cliffs. He says, well, you'll take a look and you'll see. So I see the group. The group we go walking for a couple of miles. And all of a sudden I see they embark on this mountain. It looked to me like just sheer drop on both sides. I said, I'm not having any of that. The group went, and I decided to go back to the bus. I'm alone on the Golan Heights now. And I start walking, and all of a sudden I hear machine gun fire. And the first thought in my mind is, oh my goodness, my good. And I see next lines, the papers next like group slaughtered, rabbi survives. Next hit. I could just see the headlines on the neck. That sort of thing. And I keep hearing this machine gun fire, and so I got nervous. So first thing I did is I bent down to pick up a couple of stones. That'll help me in case anybody's coming after with a machine gun. So I pick up, and then I ran. I probably ran farther and faster that day than I've ever ran before. I must have set a world record for the 3-mile run, because I made it back to that bus in no time flat. And then I waited there for about 6 hours while these guys went on their thing. I waited there. And then I found out later and I'm alone on the Golan Heights hearing machine gun fire. And it turned out that there was a military base nearby. There was an Israeli military base that were practicing. So then the group came back. So I was able to give you a good Musar lesson. The group came back, and we're sitting there. There are about 30 guys. And one of the guys says, Rabbi, why didn't you come with on the hike? So I said, because I'm scared of heights. He said, well, don't you think you should muster up the courage to overcome that and go on the hike anyway? So I said, courage is being able to look at all 30 of you and telling you I'm too scared to do it. All right? And that was the last hike that I remember taking with Ohr Somayach. So the question here is, what good does this do? You got your head is surrounded by stones. The answer is, on a basic level, that it's the same as Noach building the ark. Remember we spoke about Noach building the ark? There is no way, the Ramban says there's no way that teva could hold all the species of animals. They had to go in, and all the food and all the supplies and everything else. There's just no way. It's not big enough. It wouldn't have been big enough just to hold the feed for an elephant for an entire year. There's no way. Says the Ramban, the way the world works is we have to make our hishtadlus. Do your effort, let HaKadosh Baruch Hu take care of the rest. But we have to make an effort. Yakov's got nothing. What choice does he got? Those are the stones. He puts the stones around his head. That's all I could do. So then I go, but do what you can. Let HaKadosh Baruch Hu take care of the rest. Moshe Rabbeinu goes up on a mountain to look into Eretz Yisrael before he dies, right? Remember we spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu? He goes up on a mountain. Gentlemen, there isn't a mountain in the world that you could stand on and see the entire Eretz Yisrael. Yet it says he went up on the mountain and he saw the entire Eretz Yisrael. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu could have stood in a well. He could have gone down into a well and seen the entire Eretz Yisrael. The whole thing's a miracle. The answer is that Hashem minimizes the miracle. You do as much as you can, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I got news for you. When you work a job and you get paid, the definition of a great job is when you keep asking yourself, why are they paying me so much for what I'm doing? Because I certainly don't deserve it. That's a great job, right? And when you work and you get paid for a job and you support your family, that's also a miracle. They're paying me for this? And it's actually enough to support my family, where it costs to raise one kid to 18 years old. What's the calculation? To raise a kid to 18 years old costs about $900,000, something like that. You sell them when you're young, you're going to make a lot more money. But no, you raise them, you keep them and you raise them, and it costs you, and it's all a miracle. We have to make our hishtadlus. That's idea number one. But one of the guys here once pointed out a beautiful idea. Somebody told me, Yakov is what do you call it? He's leaving Yeshiva. And when you come to Yeshiva and you study Torah, what happens is your head changes. Your mind changes. All of a sudden you hear ideas, and you get a view of life, which you never heard before, and you absorb it, and you become what we call a Torah dika head, and you have a Torah dika outlook, and now all of a sudden Yakov is leaving, and he's going to go off to spend time with Lavan. So what does Yakov want to do? At a minimum, let me at least protect my head. I got to protect my Torah-dik head that I've developed. Let me get now. That's for us. What that means is, in contemporary terms, the minute you walk out of yeshiva, go traveling. So when I went traveling, I see what's going on in the world. And you hear the ideas that are floating around and all sorts of liberal ideas and all sorts of nonsense. And what happens is a person could easily be drawn into that because of your society around you. That's what the values the society is promoting, the ideas that the society is promoting. And you lose sight of its reality. What's the MS over here? Person has to guard. Listen, we're in contact with MS over here. When we leave the walls of the yeshiva, we have to take our head with us. We have to take that Torah head with us. And be able, the numbers don't matter to us. The fact that the whole world buys into a certain idea doesn't mean that the idea is correct. And it's a tremendous peer pressure. We're subject to that pressure. And therefore, Yaakov wants to make sure that he takes this Torah-dik idea with him. You take his Torah-dik cup with him. Okay. One of the, I heard a beautiful idea from Rabbi Leff, Shlita. And he said, why does Yakov go to sleep over here? Why is Yakov, specifically now Yakov goes to sleep? A very interesting idea. And the answer is, what he explained is like this. Again, and this affects us. You're working on yourself, you're learning Torah, you're trying to improve your character. How much have you internalized? How much of what we've learned have we really internalized? When do you get to check to see where's the check to see where you're holding, what do they call it, a something check, a reality check. When do you get that reality check of where I'm really holding?
Outside the teva of yeshiva.
Outside the teva of yeshiva is part of it. Outside is part of the reality check because I don't know where the reality, I feel my reality is here. When I go out there, I'm not in reality. So it is true that sometimes when you're on the road, it does put things into practice. Like if you're on an airplane and I want to eat, so now I got to get up to wash. But the cup is too little. Then I got to all of a sudden start activating various halachas, exactly how to, that's part of the fun. Then you got to daven. I'll tell you what was interesting. I was flying in that direction is not a problem because you fly through the night. So that's not a problem. On the way back, so you got a problem with sunrise. You got to daven. So on the plane, on the way back, I was flying from New York towards Athens. And on the way back, now I got on the plane at about what time was it? About 5 in the afternoon in America, so it's already getting dark. And I'm getting into Athens, and Athens is going to be 9 in the morning. Now that's after Zman Kriya Shema. I got to know when is the Zman Kriya Shema on the plane. They do have programs that you could they have on the computerized programs. So what I did was on the computer screen, they have on the screen that you could track your flight. And they actually have the plane, what the time is as you go through various time zones. I've never seen this before. They had time zones. So I'm on the plane and he's flying and I'm looking at the time zone. I remember we were somewhere like over England at about 4:50 in the morning. But I don't know, the halacha is that your time is based on what you're parallel to on the ground. So we're parallel, but I didn't know if it's yet Olos HaShachar in England. So I'm looking out the window of the plane. The problem is that the plane is the window, they darken the windows. So I don't know if the window was darkened or not. And I was about that, and I'm waiting, and I'm looking at the time zones. I really didn't know what to do. I was going to get up and ask the flight attendant, are the windows darkened? I couldn't even tell if the windows are darkened. And all of a sudden I see it's starting to get light. So the windows, it wasn't one of those planes, it was an old plane. They couldn't darken the windows. And all of a sudden I see it's starting to get light. And as it starts to get light, then you don't have a lot of, then immediately as it got light, and I'm waiting, I waited, and as I see it's getting light, I immediately said Kriya Shema. Right? So this forces you to sometimes put your halacha into action. I told you about the kid on the plane with the salami sandwich? I told you about that one? Remember the story? There's a kid, a Yeshiva Bacher gets on a plane, and it's like one of these, he's been traveling, right? It's one of these snack flights. So they come around, and they give out salami sandwiches. So they give the guy, there's a non-Jew next to him, they give him a salami sandwich, and they give this kid a kosher salami sandwich. They get starving. They give him a kosher salami snack. So he gets up. By the way, the meals in business are better. Like the kosher meal I got in business is better than the regular one. Yeah. That's just as an aside. So the kid, I didn't know that. They're actually more elaborate. Yeah. So the kid has got his salami sandwich and the kid's starving. So he gets up to wash. He walks over into the bathroom and he washes. He comes back to his seat and he remembers there's a halacha. The halacha is something called basar shenisale min ha'ayin. You're not allowed to eat meat, kosher food that has not had supervision on it, eye contact on it. If it's not been supervised, not been watched the entire time, the Gemara in Chulin learns if it's not been watched, you can't eat it. So he comes back to his seat. He's like, what could happen? What could have happened to it? I mean, he just got up to wash. So he doesn't. Should I eat it? Not eat it? It's an Isser D'Rabbanan. Should I eat it? He says, you know what? It's an Isser D'Rabbanan, I'm not going to eat it. So he takes a piece of bread, he rips off a piece of bread, he makes a motzi, and he eats the bread because he had washed his hands. That was it. He decides not going to eat. So there's an older man next to him, the non-Jew. He says, hey kid, why aren't you eting? He says, I'm not hungry. He says, come on. I saw you. You were starving. Don't tell me you weren't hungry. You were starving. Why aren't you eating? He says, I got a technical problem. He says, what's the technical problem? He says, well, we have a law that if I get up and I'm not watching my food, I'm not allowed to eat it. He says, why do you have that law? He says, our sages from a couple of thousand years ago instituted a law because the food has to be supervised. He said, why is that? He says, because there's a concern that maybe somebody switched the food around for non-kosher food. So the guy says, you got some pretty smart sages. He goes, why? He says, all my life I've been wondering what kosher salami tasted like. And as soon as you got up, I switched. I took one of your pieces of salami, I put one of my pieces on, and I took one of your pieces of salami. How do you like that? Right? So he didn't eat the treif. So this is where you got to put the halacha into practice. It's not so simple. Then he got questions of, I woke up, did I sleep? I had this problem. I didn't really sleep on the night. Should I get up, say yes, say Birkas HaTorah, yes, say Elokai Neshama. It was very common and plain. It wasn't so simple. I had to go into the business lounge and think about it. What do you call it? I'm not complaining, okay? What do you call it? But yeah, by the way, in Athens, when I went through security in Athens, so first, you put they scan my bag. And then I go through the metal detector. I go through the what do you call it? I go through the thing. Okay, I go through, and the guy in Athens says, "Sir, please take it off." So I lifted up my arm. A guy said, "Believe me, there's nothing under there." So what do you call it? So somebody said grass doesn't grow on a busy street. So what do you call it? At the end of the day, it forces you. It forces you when you're out. So Avi, you call that the real world. It's certainly a check on your. Then you got to find a corner to daven. In the airport, it does force a certain amount of, that's always fun. Okay.
It's fun, like watching people stare at you and you stare back at them, you're like,
Yeah, they don't even look at you anymore. No, everybody's like this. No, but nobody's even looking at you anymore. It used to be self-conscious. Nobody's looking at you. Nobody cares. Everybody's doing their own thing. So it doesn't matter. Now, 1 second. So that was, now, how do you check in where you're holding? Sometimes when you dream at night, your dreams at night are an indication of what you've been thinking about during the day. There are people, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, the famous Reb Chaim Kanievsky, dreamt at night, he dreamt Gemara. And he once made a siyum. He dreamt Gemara, and he made a siyum. And the siyum was on Baba Basra. So the son asked him, why are you making a siyum? He says, I dreamt Baba Basra. He says, Baba Basra, I mean, in one night you dreamt the whole Masechta. Baba Basra, 176 pages. How can you dream it? He said, no, it wasn't in one night. It took me a few nights. One night I dreamt up till Daf Lamed. The next night I dreamt till Daf Samach. Then I dreamt, he had organized dreams of how he dreamt Baba Basra. So sometimes people, what you dream about is an indication of what is going on in your mind. Yakov even comes out of Yeshiva for 14 years. Where am I holding now after 14 years? So he goes to sleep and he has a dream about a ladder. That's not an accident. If you were on the run from Esav, what do you think your dreams would be about? What do you really think your dreams about? Your dreams would be panic-stricken dreams. Right? You're running for your life over here. Maybe you'll be in a panic. Yaakov's dream, that means what's occupying him really? What's at the top of his priorities right now, in spite of running away from Esav? It's a technical problem. But right now, my life is centered around, that's what Rev Lev said. The dream is an indication of where a person is holding. That's what I heard from Rabbi Gottlieb many years ago. One of the reasons we drink at Purim, nowadays doesn't apply so much because everybody's so addicted to everything. You know, everybody's got some sort of alcohol or drug or some addiction. But in the old days when people didn't do much drinking, Purim was the one time of year where a guy who's really focused, you've been learning all year, learning Musar, what have I internalized? What have I internalized? So you get a little bit, drink more than you normally do. You loosen up. You're uninhibited on Purim. Let's see what comes out. So if on Purim, all you want to do is give tzedakah and you're crying because you wish you could give more tzedakah, then you must have internalized something about not being self-focused. And if all you do is you speak Torah on Purim, so then you must have absorbed something. Because that's when you see what was really absorbed. If all that happens is when you get drunk on Purim, you behave the same way that you used to behave on a college campus. So then there's still more work to do, right? There's still ways to go. Okay. Now, Yakov has a dream, and this is possibly the most spoken about in the section of Sefer Bereshis among the commentaries. Yakov has a dream. And it says, "Vayachalov ine sula mutzav arza v'rosha magia shamayma." The ladder firmly planted on the ground with the top of the ladder in the heavens. V'ine malachei Elokim olim v'yordim bo. The angels of God were going up and down on it. Now, according to some, what is malachei Elokim olim v'yordim bo? What is bo referring to? They were going up and down on it. But bo could also be translated as him. They were going up and down on him. On it or on him. It could be either one. The plain meaning is they're going up and down the ladder. But there are commentaries that say the bow refers to Yaakov Avinu. The angels go up and down based on human behavior. We create angels. We create malachim. We are creating, I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is that we translate malachim as angels. And we have a picture. I guarantee you, whatever you're picturing a malach to be, it isn't. We have no idea. It's a spiritual, there are descriptions in the Nach, but and then we're distorted a little bit by Hollywood, what they picture it to be. But a human being creates angels that go up, and he creates angels that go down based on our own actions. Olim the Yordim Bo, because of his behavior, a mitzvah, they go up. An avera, they go down. Number one. Number two, what does the ladder look like, gentlemen? Picture the ladder. Chaim, what does the ladder look like? Tall, right? Goes all the way up to heaven. Ooh, must be a tall ladder. What are you picturing? Some fireman's ladder, like a fire truck with a ladder. How wide was this ladder, gentlemen? Nobody's picturing this. How wide was the ladder? That's how high it was. How wide was it? 8,000 parsaos wide. Because a malach is 2,000 parsaos. It says olim v'yordim. That means the Gemara says, well, two are going up and two are coming down simultaneously, side by side. Well, 2,000 times 4 is 8,000. Didn't picture it that wide, did you? And considering that 8,000 parsaos is wider than the entire earth. It's a very wide ladder. We're picturing like, a ladder. Right? This is like, this is some ladder. And it's wide. It's wider than the entire earth. What do you think? What do you think the Torah is trying to tell you with that? Rav Hirsch says, what ladder are we speaking about here? We're talking about the ladder of spiritual growth, obviously. Climbing the rungs of a ladder, which is what Yiddishkeit is. So we're talking about the ladder of growth, right? The ladder of growth reaches everywhere on earth, which means no one has an excuse not to get on. That ladder is accessible to everybody. There's no one who could say, I didn't have a chance. The ladder is 8,000 parsaos wide. You could be a bushman somewhere in Australia, or what do you call it, or it doesn't matter. Every single person on earth has an opportunity to get on the ladder of spiritual growth.
As long as the height of the ladder wasn't all the way to Shemayim.
Well, the Torah says it was. So the ladder, the fact that it's wide doesn't mean that it didn't get all the way to Shemayim. It says, Mutzav arza v'rosho megia Shemaima. Now, what does that mean? Mutzav Arza means it's firmly implanted on the earth. That means it's accessible. It's there. It's available for anybody. That ladder is available for everybody to get on. Nobody's got an excuse. But there's another lesson for us. The ladder's feet are on the earth. The top of the ladder goes into the heavens, which is telling us that when we do grow, keep your feet on earth. Right? Keep yourself firmly planted. That means that person should not make mistake that Yiddishkeit and Ruchnius means that you start, no flower children over here. We stay as very firm, normal human beings. Sulam Mutzav Arza, keep your feet on the ground. And sometimes people feel like, sometimes you got what I'd call helium people. They're kind of floating around a little bit. Pull it right back down, buddy. Right? Yeah, keep it right here. We live on earth, but our head, the fact that we're on earth, that's not a conflict. A person could live on earth, and his head could be all the way up in the heavens, and the head should be in the heavens. Do you know that there were Gedolim who could think Torah while talking to people, holding a conversation? While holding a conversation, Reb Chaim Brisker was known, while he was having a regular conversation, he could at the same time compartmentalize his mind and be thinking about a Rambam. There are other people, sometimes people try it and they just get all mixed up. Right? We're not ready for that. If we could keep our mind on one thing, we're doing well. Right? The Gedolei Yisrael could do that. So somebody once asked them, how could your mind occupy two thoughts at once? How could you possibly do that? How could you? Think about that. How could you do that? The answer is, if you woke up this morning and found out that you won $4 million in the lottery, the rest of the day, every conversation that you're having, what's kind of buzzing around in your head? $4 million. But I'm having a conversation with you. So how could you be thinking about that while you're thinking about this? Right? The answer is, if a Rambam and a Tosos is worth $4 million to you, you can think about that also. Isn't that interesting? Rav Shach was once speaking to somebody. Rav Shach was once speaking to a Talmud, and he said to him, listen, you have to always keep your mind focused on learning. You have to think in learning. While you're learning, you should be thinking about the learning. And while you're eating, you should think about the learning. And when you're on a bus, you should think about learning. And when you're talking to people, you should think about the learning, just like I'm doing right now. That's what Shach said. So obviously, you have to keep it in a proper perspective. But realize it's possible. So on the one hand, your feet are on the ground. On the other hand, your head could be in the heavens as well. It's also an idea. We should have lofty. Our goals. We should have goals. We should be reaching high. I just read a book, by the way, I don't know if you ever heard about the Ribnitzer Rebbe. Did you ever hear about the Ribnitzer Rebbe? This is a man who was absolutely somewhere else. He's just absolutely somewhere else. Just completely, absolutely somewhere else. With no, he could sit down and he could daven for 8 hours at a stretch. And I so I said to my wife when I read the book, I said, this is one of those books that has absolutely no bearing on my life whatsoever. It has nothing to do with me, but there's still a benefit. Because when you read about that, it does push you a little bit more. I'm not going to bend over in Shemon Esrei and say Modim and stay in that position for 4 hours like he did. I'm not going to do that. If I can do it for 30 seconds without anything popping in my back, then I'm doing well. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it for 4 hours. But I'll get a little more focus. Just that drop more focus, that's what you get out of it. That's the All right.